vision, leadership, workplace-related topics. The Voices of Victory podcast show. Subscribe today. Let's go.
Vision, leadership, self-esteem, workplace-related topics.
Subscribe.
The Voices of Victory podcast show.
Voices of Victory.
Vision,
Voices of Victory.
leadership,
Voices of Victory.
workplace-related topics.
The Voices of Victory.
Voices of Victory. Voices of Victory. Voices of Victory.
It's time for the show. You are now listening to the Voices of Victory podcast show.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mario D. Leo.
Hello and welcome to the Voices of Victory podcast show. I'm your host, Mario D. Leone. And today's topic is the emotional detox. What to say when you're done explaining yourself. If you haven't been to the show before, we talk about all things self-esteem, all things psychology, all things trauma, workplace related, as well as confidence and leadership. And let's go ahead and bring this right down to the ground. I am going to smack this bee's nest with a stick as hard as I can. And we are going to have some fun. So yeah, what to say when you're done explaining yourself to someone? The first one I want to bring to the table is I've said all I need to say and I'm done explaining myself. It's really simple. Here's the thing with this one. It's easy to get caught up in the loop of explaining yourself when you feel misunderstood. But what you have to understand is some people will deliberately choose to misunderstand you just to annoy you, just to get you upset. Especially with a narcissist. They will do that deliberately. They want to pull your emotional strings. But you're not in the business of over-explaining. Think of it like a broken record. They're going to keep pushing until you play into their game. And the truth is, you don't have to keep saying the same thing over and over again. They've heard you. You've made your point. Stop feeding into the cycle. That's your emotional detox right there. You're not their verbal punching bag. Your peace comes from saying it once and standing firm. And another one is, I'm not having this conversation anymore. We've reached the end of my emotional bandwidth. Right? We all have a limit, and your emotional bandwidth is like your phone battery. Once it's drained, and you're tired. And guess what? You don't have to keep charging it. And narcissists love to drag conversations into the mud, forcing you to keep rehashing the same thing over and over again until you got nothing left to give. But when you recognize that your bandwidth has hit its max, it's time to call it quits. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm not having this conversation anymore. That's your shield. When you say it, you're setting a boundary. Boundary is not always verbal. It is action-based too. So your actions must match your words. Otherwise, you're conveying the wrong signal. And I see that happening a lot. They say a phrase of boundary, but their actions are weak and they're not matching. They're not having congruous behavior. Your behavior must match your words in order to reinforce your boundaries. And when I mean weak, it means they're just not feeling confident enough to follow through with the actions, the action portion of it. So when you say it, you're setting a boundary that says, I'm done, no more explaining, no more feeding into the narrative, it's over. You decide when it's enough. And the next one is, I've been clear and repeating myself is no longer an option here. So here's the fact, is that a narcissist thrives on making you repeat yourself. Because what they want to do is distort your words and then make you doubt your own clarity. And that is a tool. So the more you repeat, the more they twist your message. It's a trap, and it's time to break free. And the minute you feel that you're about to repeat the same point for the third time, it's stop, do an about face, and get out of there. It's not that they don't hear you, they're just choosing not to listen. So draw the line and say, I've been clear. There's no need to go in circles here. That's a boundary. And remember that boundaries are not just verbal, they should be actions too. Your words and actions should match. And if they don't, you're going to run into bigger problems. Stop explaining, stop going in circles, and stop giving them the extra material, the extra fodder to play with. This is where your emotional detox happens. You let go of the need for validation from someone who won't give it to you. The next phrase is, I'm not sharing any more details. Your curiosity doesn't dictate my comfort. All right? The narcissists, they're experts. Not all of them, but some of them are experts at digging for personal information, whether it's to control the narrative or use it against you later. It's fodder. Fodder. It's like feeding a lion your lunch and wondering why it's coming after you. They'll ask for personal questions, not because they care, but because they want to gain an emotional upper hand. And your details are not ammunition. So set a clear boundary. I'm not sharing any more details. And you could say, you're not being rude. You can understand, you're not being rude. You're just protecting your peace. So don't fall into that trap of feeling obligated to open up. That's your emotional detox right there. You've stopped oversharing, and in doing so, you take back your control. And the next phrase is, I'm protecting my peace, so this conversation is now over. And this is the grand finale of the emotional detox. When you say this conversation is now over, you're closing the door on manipulation, closing the door on confusion, and of course, unnecessary conflict. Because the narcissists love to create emotional chaos because it keeps them in control. But when you decide to walk away from that chaos, you're making the ultimate statement, I'm done here. We're done, right? And here's the best part. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Simply protecting your peace, which is the most valuable asset when you close the door to their games. You're opening the door to freedom and clarity. Now, what I want to share with you is a technique that I learned from Chris Voss. Chris Voss is an amazing, incredible human being. In my eyes, he's like an absolute angel. He really is. And he's a master communicator. He really is. He's just phenomenal. So he does a technique where he has pauses, and those pauses create a great deal of power. Allow me to go over it a little bit. So Chris Voss has what he calls the late night FM DJ voice, all right, which is characterized by slow, deep, calm, deliberate speech. So it is a vocal technique, and it teaches a person to maintain control and stay calm in these situations. So now when we utilize the same phrases I taught you with the late night FM DJ voice, it sounds a little different. Here's the first one. I've said all I need to say, and I'm done explaining. So you see how there's pauses in there? It gives a lot of value to it. And you can actually practice that. Literally practice that and practice in the mirror. Number 2, I'm not having this conversation anymore. Right? You see how it changes the dynamic with everything. And that's the fun part. The next one. I've been clear. And repeating myself is no longer an option. So you see how there's spacing and delaying within some of the phrases. Some of the words you could put close together, the other ones you could actually space out, which changes the dynamic of things. It's actually beautiful. So that's what I like about this. Here's the other one, right? Doing it in the same way. I'm not sharing any more details. Simple, right? Simple, very simple. I'm protecting my peace, and this conversation is over. So when you slow it down like this and you want to make sure your voice goes rather deep with it, what I like about it as well is you get to reinforce some of the words with strength. So you're now not just saying these things, and they're not just coming across kind of scripted, but you're using a very immovable no. Energetically, when you come across with the late night FM DJ voice, it allows you to just firmly plant yourself and emotionally detach from everything that's going on. It allows you to express and emotionally detox. You're closing the door on that manipulation, but this time you're using tone. So I wanted to save the best for last on this one. And just understand, Chris Voss is incredible. Like, if you haven't seen his material, please go learn everything about him. He's absolutely an incredible human being. Man, I would do a workshop alongside with that guy any day of the week. And he's got such a wonderful personality. And he's a former hostage negotiator, so he knows what he's talking about, and he's got a great way of bringing the information across. So have a wonderful day. And again, don't forget to practice this in the mirror. See you on the next video.